What's up, guys? Welcome back to the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast. This is the Super Bowl episode, so we're back after a couple months away from fantasy football and from you guys. We're back to cover a little bit of information going on in the fantasy football world and a little bit of just normal football with having the Super Bowl this weekend. As always, I'm Jacob Reeder, your host.
I'm Chris Langley.
I'm Payton Hedrick.
And we're going to get straight into it.
All right, so to begin, we're going to do a quick, recap of some of the player moves and coaching moves we've seen over the past couple weeks. This will be, of course, the retirements, the coaching changes, and maybe some speculation with some of the players who are about to go in free agency, as well as a few others, which we'll get to in a little bit. But for now, let's start straight off the top. Folks, it's not a misnomer. The greatest of all time, Tom Brady, has decided to call it a career, barring, of course, though, there was a little bit of speculation for a good 2-day period that it was a rumor that somehow got leaked and was actually not true. It would take forever to just recap the entire thing that happened, but Adam Schefter was one of the first people to report it. Then Brady's camp came out and said, no, he didn't retire. He was still deciding whether or not he should retire. But then Brady released a statement on both Twitter and Instagram where he decided that he said the next stage of his life, he was ready to enter into retirement. So, with that being said, though, a lot of questions now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mainly is now they've lost probably their best offensive player, if I had to be honest. So, what do y'all expect to happen at quarterback? I'll give a hot take straight off the top of this episode. I think Kyle Trask could be the starter. Yes, I believe that. They didn't draft him in the second round for no reason. He's going to start at some point, but whether or not they want to start him immediately or if they want to have another quarterback that Trask could learn under for maybe a season or two, I don't know. What do y'all think?
I think you're right. I think Kyle Trask will start for one preseason game. But honestly, no. I think they're going to trade. And, there's definitely some quarterbacks that are going to be moving around. There's going to be a little bit of a quarterback shuffle. And for them to end up with Jimmy Garoppolo or, someone like that, I wouldn't be very surprised. It's Tampa Bay. A lot of quarterbacks would still be willing to go there even though they just lost Tom Brady, or especially because they just lost Tom Brady. But I think some quarterbacks will still see some hope in that organization and want to get a Super Bowl push. So, but honestly, I think that there is a lot more than Tom Brady leaving there because, some of these other guys like Gronk may not want to play for another quarterback. I know he said that he would consider it, but let's just say you get a quarterback that Gronk necessarily doesn't feel like playing with. Then you lose Gronk, and then some of the wide receivers may want to change. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few months before the season starts in Green Bay. Not in Green Bay, in
Tampa Bay. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll probably bring in somebody else, but I'm really interested to see what Chris Godwin's going to do, whether he's going to make his decision before or after they get a new quarterback or name Kyle Trask their quarterback. He's coming up on a contract year. They franchise tagged him this past season. So it'll be interesting to see what he wants to do. I've been hearing rumors of the Jaguars, I believe. People saying that he's going to try to play there, but we'll see. I don't really have a place that I think he should go play for, but anybody will welcome him in. Yeah. It'll just be a big contract that they'll have to fill.
Yeah, and
like
of course,
Saints.
Potentially.
Trade Thomas.
And it's a sentiment I'm pretty sure is shared with some Saints fans. I don't know if that would be the majority, but I guess we'll see in the next couple months. But yeah, personally, I think Chris Godwin, if he's coming off a torn ACL, we've seen the talent, he'll probably get a nice contract. Whether or not he stays with the Bucs or if he decides to be the official wide receiver one on another team, like you said, the Jaguars, it could be possible. Especially since DJ Chark may be leaving, and we'll get to that later in the show. And as for Gronk, I think Gronk retires. Yeah. He came back, he fulfilled what he needed to do. He got another ring. He's going out mostly on top, I guess you could say. He actually had a pretty good season, all things considered. So, yeah, a lot of questions going on with Tampa Bay. I don't personally think Tampa Bay is going to be a major contender next season, but we'll see. That defense is still strong, and they still got a pretty good offense. They just got to find the field general that will lead it.
So on the note of Gronk, though, I believe I remember him saying in an interview that, this is the best he's ever felt. So maybe he does want to keep playing, but I highly doubt it. Him and Tom Brady made a legacy together, and even if he starts the season off next year, which I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the season, but I really don't think he's going to finish it. I think he's going to, go out to training camp and decide, this just isn't the same for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because, Gronk and Brady, not necessarily a package deal, but
Right.
they've been with each other for a while.
Gronk has never played with another quarterback when he did, it was like with Jimmy Garoppolo or Jacoby Brissett. It was never he was never on a different team without Brady being there.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely agree. It's definitely more of a package deal. Another team that is seeing a change of quarterback, another great retiring, the Ben Roethlisberger. Not the Ben Roethlisberger. He has called it quits. They lost their playoff game to the Chiefs, but, he got a final win at Heinz Field. I guess you could call that a storybook ending for him. So, the Steelers is another big question mark. Steelers still have a decent offense. Najee Harris obviously coming off a great rookie season. They still got a young receiving core led by Claypool, James Washington, and Deontay Johnson. Now, what happens with Juju, I don't know. That's going to be a question mark this season. And then they got, of course, Pat Freiermuth as well. So, with Roethlisberger now gone, a lot of people are questioning also what could happen here. It's either, personally, it's one or two scenarios. Maybe three, because I'll get to the third in a second. Mason Rudolph starts, which is a lot of Steelers fans. I don't know if they're very keen on that. They draft a quarterback, maybe Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Malik Willis, or they trade for a quarterback, and one quarterback could see being traded there, like Payton mentioned earlier, Jimmy Garoppolo. Mm-hmm. That could be potentially a good fit. I don't know if he would work in the Steelers' offense, but they might want to just look for a quick change instead of trying to take a chance on the draft. So that's a question. What do you guys think will happen at quarterback? Like there, do you guys trade, draft, or just let Mason start?
I don't think it'll be Mason Rudolph. I'll probably say they're gonna wait and see what they can get in the draft, and then look for a quarterback after the fact. But I'd see them probably taking quarterback. I've been hearing a lot of Malik Willis to Pittsburgh, who's a more run heavy quarterback out of Liberty. Not to the level of Lamar Jackson was, but on a similar note. We'll have to see what happens with that, how early he gets picked. He could get picked before the Steelers even pick. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Payton?
Yeah, kind of like what Jacob said. I think it just depends on how things land on draft night. Because, let's be real. I think there are a lot of options for quarterbacks, right? Between draft and free agency. And it's finding the one that fits your offense the best. And honestly, there could be a few options of ways to go with an offense here. So do you want to stay with a Ben Roethlisberger style quarterback? Do you want a pocket passer? Or do you want to go with, like what Jacob was saying, do you want to go with a young guy that, is going to stretch out the playing field more, get outside the tackles and maybe run upfield or, just do something different? And I think that's really the decision that they have to make. But if I have to, say what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to try and draft a young guy because I think they're going to try and change the offense up. Like Chris was saying, they have a very young offensive core right now. Mm-hmm. And I think a quarterback that can kind of stretch it outside the tackles and maybe run the ball a little bit or, just get outside the pocket and work the field a little bit more, in relation to with Najee, being able to run the ball and get some more stuff done at the running back position, I think they draft somebody. I'd be surprised if they went after Jimmy Garoppolo because I think that they'll probably kind of want to move away from the pocket passing style quarterback.
They've been rolling with that type of offense since 2004, and they won them 2 Super Bowls and made multiple playoff appearances. So maybe a change, but I don't know how much Mike Tomlin's going to want to change. Although granted, I'm pretty sure the offense runs through the OC now more because Tomlin's a more defensive coach in that sense. And then again, they actually did lose their defensive coordinator, Keith Butler, because I think he either resigned or his contract expired, but I'm not 100% sure. Moving on to the coaching changes, we'll just start off the top. This one kind of was a surprise for many of us, especially because I was told by somebody a 70% chance this would not happen. Sean Payton has decided to step away from football. Whether or not it's for good or just for a couple years, he hasn't really decided yet. There are some people expecting him to come back in a couple years and coach the Dallas Cowboys. If that does, I'm going to be very upset. But that's besides the point. So, and I'll mention the reason why we brought up Tom Brady and Roethlisberger is because these moves, whether it's a coach or player, will affect fantasy moving forward, especially if you're in a dynasty league. So with the Saints, they just promoted Dennis Allen, the DC. But now, what happens to the guys on offense? It's going to be a different coach, and from what I understand, I think Pete Carmichael is taking a step back. He's now not going to be the OC. I think some people say he's going to be the quarterback's coach now. So they're looking for a new offensive coordinator as well.
Which
So
maybe the Saints bring in a couple guys from, back in the day, not
Yeah.
necessarily the glory days of the Saints, but maybe they bring in some other guys. And I don't know. I like the move for Dennis Allen going head coach. I just kind of like when a team is in the phase that the Saints are, not necessarily rebuilding, but kind of just trying to gather what they got and figure out where they're at before rebuild maybe. But just kind of seeing where they're at, I think it's good to keep try and keep the chaos to a minimum,
Right.
You can't bring in like a new coach and then you got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do draft day? And we got all these new guys and they're trying to handle all these contracts and stuff. Sean Payton left a lot out there on the table for Dennis Allen, but I think he is the guy that understands what needs to get done,
Right.
Because he's been there, so he can kind of take the position on a lot easier than bringing somebody new in. I think it's good, and I mean Dennis Allen, although he hasn't had a great head coaching career, considering I believe his record is 4-28 as a head coach.
I think it's a little bit more than that, but he did coach the Raiders during the early 2010s, which was pretty lackluster.
Or maybe 8-28, 4.
Yeah, he didn't.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, he's officially right now 8-28. I don't know if that counts the one game he coached this season against the Bucs.
I doubt it, but I like the change. It was very surprising to me that Sean Payton had stepped back because he only had a couple years left on his contract. So
Right.
Whatever's going on with him, to step back before the contract ends, that's what surprised me. And like you were saying about the Cowboys, I had heard a rumor that he had been talking to the Cowboys years ago, and it coincidentally was the same year that actually the Pelicans, I know this is weird, this is kind of weird, so the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis, and Sean Payton was going to go to the Cowboys, but some weird reason they didn't want the Benson family owns both teams. They didn't want two huge keys leaving both organizations the same year.
That would have imploded like the sports franchises in New Orleans, just in one quick swoop like that.
It honestly could have brought up like collusion because it was being done under the table and behind closed doors. So who knows if any of that's true? But yes, I think if he does come back to the NFL, it'll most likely be the Dallas Cowboys.
Which is unfortunate.
They've definitely been looking to get him for a few years.
That's been the report every year. People keep saying, "Oh, Payton's going to leave, go to the Cowboys," because that's where he was before the Saints. He was I want to say he was the OC under Bill Parcells, back there before Bill Parcells got replaced by.
And then I
Phillips.
remember years ago, because he still lived out in Texas. People were like, he bought an apartment in Texas or something in Dallas because of whatever reason. He bought an apartment and people were like, "Oh, he's going to Dallas. He's going to Dallas." So, I mean, it's probably only a matter of time at this point.
Right. Anything's possible. Before we hop to the next couple of coaches that I had on my list here, what do y'all think happens to guys like Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas, just in terms of fantasy? You think Winston comes back? You think Thomas gets traded? You think Winston moves on? People are saying Winston could go back to the Bucs. I don't think that's going to happen. But because again, this is going to affect fantasy, especially because you don't know. They weren't Thomas didn't play this year, and Winston only played a few games where he got injured. But overall, if they come back, the team is still pretty collinear. It's just going to be under a new coach. So what do y'all think happens here?
Yeah, I think they'll both stay most likely. I think they're going to try to keep it the same as they can. If you're at one level and you're playing pretty well, you want to just kind of keep that same thing going, and that's why they just brought up Dennis Allen. They're not trying to change the entire team and flip it all over. Obviously, he's going to be able to pick who he wants. They need to have somebody calling the plays because that's what Sean Payton did. So whoever he brings in as his OC is going to make a lot of difference for fantasy owners like us. Not as much Dennis Allen on the defensive end. But obviously you'll have to be watching those kind of guys. And Alvin Kamara is even more worrisome fantasy-wise to me than those guys are.
Yeah, and that Payton, you can take kind of the reins on this one since Kamara is your player in fantasy. Because some stuff went down in Vegas during the Pro Bowl weekend with Kamara.
Before I get to Alvin Kamara, I just want to touch base on, like you were saying, Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas. Honestly, as a Saints fan, I hope they both stay just because, Thomas coming off of a major injury, I'd like to see him play, and I'd like to see him do well, obviously, especially the last full season we got from him was an amazing season. Granted, it was with Drew Brees, but Jameis Winston as well, he's making tremendous strides to get back next season. I mean, it was like 2 months ago, and he's running on a treadmill after ACL surgery, which is like amazing. So I think the Saints should bring them both back, try and get a good season out of both of them, and then reevaluate at the end of the season. Or even by the trade deadline, reevaluate where you're at with Michael Thomas. And also, we don't know the players at a personal level, so we don't know what these guys want to do. But hopefully both these guys are accepting of the coaching change and accepting of their roles and just go out there and get it done this year. Yeah. But now on to Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was unfortunately, or fortunately, since we don't know the actual story in complete detail, but he was arrested in Las Vegas. He was involved in a fight outside of a casino, I believe it was.
It's Dry's nightclub.
Okay, so a nightclub. He was involved in a fight with some of him and his acquaintances, and to make a long story short, eventually apparently beat up on a man outside of the nightclub and was arrested shortly following the
Pro Bowl.
The Pro Bowl, yeah. So it happened the night before the Pro Bowl, but he was met, I believe, on his way to the locker room by Nevada police and was arrested shortly after. So he could be facing up to 5 years in prison. That's the maximum sentence.
Yeah, it ranges from 1 to 5. To my knowledge.
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, we've seen, as bad as it sounds, we've seen NFL players do worse and receive less sentences. So, in all actuality, what I think is going to happen is it's probably going to be major fines from both Nevada Police Department and major fines from the NFL, and he's going to probably have to sit out at least, half a season, but most likely he's going to be sitting out this full season, to be realistic. So, fantasy, this really, really, really hurts because how do you treat the Saints' backfield now?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Ingram and Mark Ingram and Tony Jones Jr. are basically the only guys now there.
Yeah, and if it's a long term, obviously the Saints are going to have to do something. They're either going to have to decide, hey, our feature back is now Mark Ingram, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. He's a great running back, but I think he's better when he can work with another, running back like Alvin Kamara, like where they can kind of work together and split reps, because Mark Ingram is getting older and some may say he's probably past his prime, but I think he's still got some juice left in the tank. I don't think he's going to be all that great if he's out there, 3, 4, 5, 6 downs every single drive. So, whatever happens, but wish the best for Kamara, and hopefully everything is handled correctly.
This season's going to be a big question mark for quite a while. We probably won't know until the season gets closer for sure. I mean, Jacob, what do you think happens here?
I mean, I'm not going to say what I think is going to happen in the court system, honestly, because I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. Suspension is definitely the best option NFL-wise. So having him in your lineup is not gonna be great as of now. You hold on to him, obviously, because he's great, and it's probably going to fold over eventually, but you don't like to see it, obviously, especially this, at this point in the season.
Right. You don't like to see that, at this point in his career. Right. He's, 26?
He was drafted in 2017, so he's played the 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So this is his 6th season coming up. So I would have to guess maybe 27 or so.
26, 27 years old. And, I mean, if he has to sit out a whole year, possibly 2, possibly 3 or more, then the Saints may just decide to move on from him.
Yeah.
Which
would be very unfortunate.
It would be, but,
But I mean, if it's the right move to do, it's the right move to do.
I could easily see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, remember, Kareem Hunt got released pretty quickly after what happened with him in the Chiefs. And when he came back, when he was signed to the Cleveland Browns, I think he was suspended half the season.
Yeah.
So, and obviously these are two different cases, so it's going to vary. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens with Kamara. But on the train of coaching changes, we saw a lot of teams change. I want to say it was 9 teams had new head coaches. Now we're not going to go through all of them because that would take very long. But I did pick out a couple that I think are going to be major talking points for this season. I think the biggest one, and I'll let you take the lead on this because this is a guy you want to see Aaron Rodgers go to this team. The Denver Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and he was the OC, the offensive coordinator with Green Bay. And people have been speculating since last offseason if any team's going to get Aaron Rodgers in a trade, which I think we all can agree. We expect Rodgers to be out of the Packers this offseason. He could probably end up on the Broncos. So, do you guys think that's likely? And if so, do you also maybe see somehow Davante Adams, who's a free agent this year, following suit, even though the Broncos have a pretty stacked receiving core as is? What do y'all think?
Yeah, supposedly Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers have a pretty good relationship, so that's just stirring even more rumors into the mix. For my own fantasy gain is why I necessarily want Aaron Rodgers to go there. I have Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton on my dynasty team, so obviously having Aaron Rodgers there instead of Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock is a major upgrade for both those players. On Davante Adams' side, honestly, he probably will get franchise tagged, which for him is probably not the best option.
Yeah.
But for the team, they probably will franchise tag him. I don't necessarily see him following Aaron Rodgers. He could, say, if Aaron Rodgers went to the Raiders or something like that, in that source where they have a little bit more money to work with and don't have a stacked receiving core already. I could see it more happening. But as you said, Aaron Rodgers, we have no idea what's going to happen with him. I obviously want him going to Denver, but there are many different places where people need quarterbacks, as we were talking about Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, Carolina doesn't have a great position. Washington's pretty bad.
You can honestly throw maybe even Seahawks in there.
Yeah,
if Russell
Seattle
Wilson
could
gets
be
traded.
changing. Houston, which is a terrible situation, but they need a quarterback, so you never know what's going to happen. And he would obviously have a lot of pull there if he went there. Right. So it's really up in the air with him, but we'll have to see what happens in the near future.
And I do want to mention real quick, the Packers, almost all their receivers are going to be free agents. Tanyan's going to be a free agent. I mean, he's a tight end, but you can call it a receiver technically. Alan Lazard, he's a free agent. Valdez Scantling is a free agent. I think the only guy who's going to be on a contract here is Amari Rodgers.
Yeah, Cobb's a free agent too.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers wants to take all of them with him too.
Right.
I don't know how you can possibly say that you need more weapons, but that you want to take 3 wide receivers with you wherever you go.
I mean, to be fair, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's about to win MVP 2 times in a row. It's going to be his fourth MVP award since he's came in the league in 2005. He's got a lot of he's probably got a lot of control in the saying of where he wants to go, and Broncos are probably the most likely option. I will say though, if Adams does not get franchise tag, which if he does, it's going to be an Allen Robinson situation. At least to me, 1 team or 2 teams I can see him going to: Raiders or Colts. Mm-hmm. Raiders they could easily use a wide receiver number 1. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is good, all things considered. Zay Jones is okay, but you want a set, solid wide receiver 1, and Adams is the guy.
And if Hunter Renfrow, honestly, is your wide receiver 1, the reason I think he did so well is because, he wasn't the wide receiver 1. Like when you see Renfrow, who's going to have to, once he becomes a wide receiver 1, who's going to have to go up against, Jalen Ramsey and guys like that, it's like they're going to figure out ways to pick him apart on the defensive end very quickly. He's not the most skilled route runner. He's not the fastest. He's, at best, an average receiver. That's just in my opinion. Obviously, he played well towards the end of the season when he had to step up. So you can't really beat down on him too hard. But, back to Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, make it or break it point for him will probably be whether the team can afford to take on Adams' contract as well.
They're negative 40, or are you talking about the Packers or just whatever team he goes to?
No, I'm saying whatever team Aaron Rodgers goes to, I think a make it or break it is going to be whether Davante Adams can go as well. So, do I think he ends up on the Broncos? That's more than likely what's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if he ends up somewhere completely out in left field with, Davante Adams as well. So
I do want to quickly mention Broncos have $38.87 or $88 million in cap space right now. So they could afford it. Adams, I believe,
because you got to understand that if they sign Aaron Rodgers, they're probably going to get rid of.
Well, they wouldn't be signing Rodgers because Rodgers I think is still under contract for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but they're also taking that contract on, so that adds into it.
Yeah,
Plus,
what I'm saying is they're going to get rid of one, if not both, quarterbacks who probably have decent sized contracts because they're both getting starting quarterback like contract sizes. So,
right.
I mean, the Broncos could probably take it on, and I mean maybe they do, but more than likely, in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Broncos, and Davante Adams is going to get franchise tag. That seems more than likely what's going to happen, and sadly, that may be
it's unfortunate.
A slow, painful end to Davante Adams' career.
Yeah, I will say quickly before we go to the next coach, one speculation that could happen, if the Broncos do trade for Rodgers, they could send, because Patrick and Sutton both signed extensions this year. If the Broncos are hoping to get rid of some of that cap space, they could probably send one of them to the Packers so that Jordan Love would have at least a set wide receiver one, and then they can get the rest of their wide receivers along the way. So anything's possible. This will definitely be the biggest headline going into at least free agency and the trades, and we'll have to see how it goes. Next coach I do want to quickly touch on, Doug Pederson. He was fired from Philadelphia, took a year away from the NFL, and is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people like this hire. Trevor Lawrence could be. Doug Pederson supposedly is a QB guru, so this could be good for him. But the question I want to maybe focus on, at least here, is Travis Etienne's returning, so it's very questionable to see how James Robinson's styles, or at least his value in fantasy, is going to be now that Etienne's back. But the main question I have is what they could do at receiver, because DJ Chark, who went on IR, I want to say week 4 this year, he's an impending free agent. So what do y'all think the Jaguars might do? Because remember, they have the first overall pick, which I'll quickly state. I expect them to pick an offensive lineman, maybe Evan Neal, tackle out of Alabama. Some people are saying they could trade down for a team that needs to trade up, for whatever reason. I don't think any teams necessarily need to trade up. So, what do y'all expect could happen in Jacksonville? Like, Chark, do y'all expect him to stay, leave? And do y'all think the Jaguars could be on an up and up heading into this season? Now, it's not Urban Meyer, it's Doug Pederson.
I think the Jaguars, quite frankly, can't afford not to re-sign DJ Chark. Sadly, we didn't really see much from him this season, and sadly, we didn't really see much from Trevor Lawrence. But kind of like what we were saying with the Saints is, like, you want to see some of these guys come back. You want a little bit of normality and not so much chaos. They've had a mix of coaches coming in and out, new quarterback. I think that they should re-sign DJ Chark. And honestly, I think that both James Robinson and Travis Etienne should stay and kind of work together in tandem with each other. Who's the one, who's the two, I don't really know. But I think if they both stay, they work together, and I think this could be a turn in the right direction for the Jaguars.
Yeah. And I do want to mention, if they do let Chark go, they do have $59.25 million in cap space. I think you said this before the show. You could expect Godwin to go to Jaguars, which this actually would be an upgrade. Put him with Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault. That's a good wide receiver 3 combo.
Also, what about
or 3 wide receiver combo?
Calvin Ridley? What if Calvin Ridley decides that he wants to step back into football? Could you see the Jaguars possibly being a landing spot for him?
There's some people saying that Ridley will probably not play with the Falcons again. I don't know if that tied into his reasoning to leave, which I highly doubt. But or at least is one of the reasons he stepped away. It's possible. If Ridley or Godwin, automatically one of those two would become the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I could see both of those guys definitely stepping up in Jacksonville, and maybe giving the offense a little bit of the veteran help and direction that they kind of need to start winning some games. I don't know. It definitely starts at the head coach, and hopefully Doug Pederson has what it takes to kind of step up and take control of this organization that has been spiraling for the last couple seasons.
Yeah, since Jacksonville, it's just been downhill. And some people think, Pederson was only good because he just was carried to a Super Bowl by Nick Foles and he played a Matt Patricia defense, but we don't know. Well, I guess we'll really see how it goes. I mean, what do you think could happen?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really like excited about the hire. I wasn't wowed or anything. I was just kind of like, oh, Doug Pederson, like, okay. But it'll be interesting to watch DJ Chark. I think that he'll probably go somewhere else. Where, I have absolutely no idea. But somebody's gonna want to sign DJ Chark, and then they'll be in the business of trying to look for another top receiver. Probably somebody that will make some buzz, such as Ridley, Godwin, or maybe a little bit tier down from that.
Yeah. But that'll be mainly the coaches we wanted to cover. I mean, a lot of other coaches like Brian DeBull going to the Giants. I mean, the Bills' assistant GM became the GM in the Giants. Apparently, a lot of people said he's doing a great job so far. Be curious to see what happens with Daniel Jones. This is the make or break it year for him, so we'll see there. I mean, Vikings just got the Rams OC, and the Rams are playing the Super Bowl this Sunday, which, again, we'll get to in a little bit. Before we get to the Super Bowl, though, there are a few other speculations going on about what could happen. We already talked about Calvin Ridley, so we can kind of we were going to speak about him here, but we covered him with the Jaguars, what we could see happening there. The big one, though, and I guess this would be the main speculation, is what's going on right now in Arizona. So for those who are currently unaware, Kyler Murray just out of nowhere got rid of every mention of, or basically he washed, or like, I don't know if he, not washed. He basically just got rid of any connection like with Arizona on social media. A lot of people are debating, like, could this mean he could get traded? Do people think something's going on? I mean, we saw Julio Jones do this with Atlanta a few years ago, so I don't know how much of this is like as serious as people are making it out to be. I did want to entertain one theory, though. Some people think he's going to the MLB. Which I personally don't see happening, but we've seen crazier things happen. I mean,
MLB players make a lot of money, so
yeah, that's true. I mean, what do y'all think happens here? I mean, if the Cardinals lose Kyler, they are in trouble because the team looks good. They have a good offense and they have a stellar defense. I mean, they did get him upset in the wild card round to the eventual NFC champions. But yeah, you can't afford to lose Kyler. He's in his prime right now. You lose him, you're in trouble. What do y'all think happens?
I think that the Cardinals do whatever they need to do to keep Kyler Murray in Arizona. I mean, he doesn't seem like the player that is in the position to get dished out and traded. He doesn't seem like the player that's in the position to really just say, you know what, I'm done with this organization. They had a good season. Did they not start like 8-0, 10-0 or something like that?
They started, they were the last undefeated team in the league. And they were the only undefeated team, I want to say, by week 4.
Yeah. They well, no, not by week 4. I don't think. I think
there were a lot of teams lost early on. Because I think it was the Rams and Cardinals. I think it was a Sunday night game. They were both 3-0, and whoever won was going to be the only one left. But I don't know if it was week 4, but Cardinals were absolutely the last team to still be undefeated.
Yeah, and it was for a while. I think their first loss was given to them by Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was the Thursday night game
against
Green Bay.
I mean, I just don't really see him just being like, you know what, I'm ready to move on. Like, that was like this iteration of the Cardinals, that was like their first little slice of like, okay, let's see what we can do here. Because, I mean, we've seen defensive changes with them adding J.J. Watt. We've seen offense change adding, DeAndre Hopkins. So, I think if he is one of those players that wants to move on from, football or wants to move on from his team, I think it would only make sense for him to at least give it one more season and see how things pan out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll wait and see. I don't like reading too much into these social media shenanigans, so...
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, again, we saw this with Julio Jones in Atlanta a few years ago. So, and he ended up staying all the way till 2020. Or 2021. He was traded. Or was he traded in the offseason, or was it a mid-season trade last year?
I'm not sure. Either way, he didn't play until 2021.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So with that, let's get to obviously the main event of this weekend. It's the final game of the NFL regular season. Of course, we're talking about Super Bowl 56. Huge game, and I want to tell you this straight off the bat. This was the greatest playoffs I've seen ever up to this point. This was easily the greatest NFL playoffs.
Was it because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were in it?
Not just that. I mean, think of it this way. This is the first time in NFL history both teams were not. It was not a 1 seed or 2 seed made the Super Bowl, or 3 seed. Both teams that made this year were 4 seeds. We saw both number 1 seeds get upset in the divisional playoffs. We had multiple games go either in overtime or get settled by last-second field goals. it was just all around crazy. I can tell you this right now. No one. I mean, some people had the Rams going to potentially being a Super Bowl contender, probably making the Super Bowl because they got Matthew Stafford. I'm telling you, if anyone bet on the Bengals making it to the Super Bowl, they just got a ton of money because no one expected the Bengals to be not only a playoff team but be in the dang Super Bowl. And with that, they're playing the Rams in SoFi Stadium. Who would have thought? First 54 years the Super Bowl was played, no team played in their had a home field advantage and played in their home stadium. 2 years in a row, we now see it. Tampa Bay last year, LA, and LA this year. So before we get to that, though, again, we can just quickly recap the conference championships. I'll just quickly go over them. We saw the Chiefs get out to an 18-point lead. Bengals immediately came back, forced overtime. Kind of reminded me of, sadly, the Saints and Rams NFC Championship game where Chiefs got the ball first, threw a pick. Funny enough, was picked by a former Saints player, Von Bell. And then they went downfield. They kicked the field goal. Bengals are making it to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1988. They had won their first game in nearly, I want to say it was almost 30 years in the wild card round versus the Raiders. Huge surprise. A lot of people were happy to see them, especially in Louisiana. Rams, they escaped a Tampa Bay comeback, which would have just further cemented Tom Brady as the greatest of all time. But they at least were just able to survive thanks to Cooper Kupp and their kicker, Matt Gay. And they finally beat the Niners after losing, 6 in a row to the Niners. They beat the Niners in the conference championship. So Bengals, Rams, it's going to be awesome. Quickly, though, before I get to that, I did want to do this quickly who do we think may be the playoff MVP so far? And my pick, it's Evan McPherson, the kicker for the Bengals. I mean, oh my goodness, I've never seen a guy be this clutch before. Kicked the game-winning field goal against the Titans. Kicked the game-winning field goal against the Chiefs. He's been on fire this entire season. He had multiple game winners in the regular season alone. He's my MVP for sure. I mean, who do you guys think was the biggest standout this playoffs between either of these teams?
So I'm going to go ahead and not necessarily pick a playoff MVP, but pick a MVP from each of the teams that are in the Super Bowl. Like you said, I agree with you on Evan McPherson. He is, having the greatest rookie season a kicker has ever had.
Right, that's right. He was picked, I think, 5th, 6th round this year? He's a rookie.
So
he's doing all this now.
Has made, I believe, 12 field goals in the postseason, and that is the most field goals made in the postseason by a rookie without missing or something along those lines. I may have mixed that up. Got a little mixed up in translation there, but somewhere around that. But yes, I think Evan McPherson has definitely, as crazy as it sounds, given the Bengals what they've needed to finish off these wins that they've gotten. But also on the other side, the Rams, you have to credit a lot of their success to Cooper Kupp. He has just been somehow, some way, an unstoppable force that offense has needed to just, accelerate themselves into the playoffs and then now to the Super Bowl. But I just can't say that I'm surprised that the Rams have made it here because of the fact that they did everything they needed to do to get here. They've traded out numerous draft picks for years to come. And I remember Aaron Donald saying something earlier in the season that, it's really easy for these guys to get behind their management and their staff because they're showing the players that they're really doing what it takes to get them to the Super Bowl. So these players definitely appreciate that and recognize that. So I think all around the Rams have kind of just done a great job of just doing what they had to do,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, but the guy you haven't been talking about is Joe Burrow.
Well, yeah.
He's the MVP right now for me.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow is the MVP right now. Evan McPherson
yeah.
doesn't get in the place that he has to be to kick the winning field goal without Joe Burrow.
That's true.
Matt Stafford's also been pretty great. Cooper Kupp, phenomenal, obviously. Probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But
Chase is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Both
we have a lot of offensive players of the year in these games, but Joe Burrow is the guy. Joe Burrow is the guy who is the MVP so far.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be a very interesting Super Bowl regardless. What were you saying?
realistically, when it comes down to MVP candidates, it's usually a quarterback, and Joe Burrow's just been the better quarterback as of right now. So
yeah, this will. I mean, one of these guys is going to be. This is both of them, their first career Super Bowl appearance. So one of them's winning a
both
ring.
career playoff appearances. This
Yeah,
year too,
Stafford had not won a playoff
insane.
game at all since he had been in the league. He lost. I want to say he lost his first one against the Saints in 2011, and then he lost to the Seahawks in 2016, I think. Oh, and they also lost the one to the Cowboys in 2014. So that was 3 losses. Finally gets to the Rams and he wins 3 playoff games. So now he's at 500. He could be over 500 after this, or we'll see Burrow still be undefeated in the playoffs. As LSU fans, I'm happy to see that. Real quick before we get to our game picks, just want to also mention there are some injuries going on. I mean, the main ones are C.J. Usama and Tyler Higbee, both starting tight ends of both teams. They both suffered knee injuries during the conference championship. Usama, I believe, has not been practicing much, but they're optimistic that he will play, which if he does, that will be big because he's a very underrated threat on that team. Remember, they're throwing to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, but when he's needed, C.J. Usama is there. I want to say he scored a couple touchdowns during the postseason. And actually, you can also throw in Cam Akers because he was a limited participant throughout the week. But I don't know about Tyler Higbee. People are saying he's expected to play. You need every player you can get on this in both offenses because I feel like this will be a shootout.
all I'm saying about one of the injuries that you mentioned was C.J. Usama. C.J. Usama earlier in the week at their, I guess where
Media
they're
day.
from, we would call it maybe a parade or whatever. But when they had their, I don't know, Super Bowl party, let's say, for the city leading up to the Super Bowl, C.J. Usama proceeded to not only tear his shirt off, but to take off his knee brace. So I think we'll be seeing C.J. Usama out on the field. I know walking around the streets of Cincinnati are a bit different than, catching balls in the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't be worried about him. I think he's riding the wave of excitement going into this.
It's a good thing you mentioned that because earlier today it came out that he said, I guess in one of his pressers, he'll take a bath in Skyline Chili if Cincinnati wins the Super Bowl, which I would love to see. That would be incredible. And I guess you could throw this into Sam Hubbard, defensive end for the Bengals. He came out and said they're playing the Super Bowl and they're going to win it for Harambe. Because remember, Harambe was a part of the Cincinnati Zoo before he was killed back in 2016. So it's interesting all around. You got a lot of guys who are excited to be in this because again, I know these teams heading into the playoffs they were confident. I don't think either of these teams expected to really be in the Super Bowl, let alone playing each other. Again, 4 seeds, both in the Super Bowl, one playing in its own backyard.
I mean, believe it or not, when we were making our playoff little competition, I had made a bracket, and believe it or not, I did have Bengals and Rams in the Super Bowl. But it may have just been me sitting there being like, man, Joe Burrow could throw 350 yards and they could win this.
Yeah.
It was very biased. From the beginning, I've been not necessarily a Rams fan, but a fan of the plan that they had in place from the beginning of the season. And obviously I've been a Bengals fan just to see, guys that we got to see go through college and even Jamar Chase, watching him go through high school. So I just was rooting for both sides of the ball here. So
Yeah. So this will bring us basically to our final part, and this will be technically our Bourbon Bowl of this week. I mean, obviously it's one game, so this is, and I would say this is easily the biggest game for us to pick because, well, it all comes down to this. Now, I do want to add at least one reason as to why I'm picking this team to win the game. So, as much as this will probably give me a ton of hate from my fellow LSU fanatics and Bengals fanatics, I really could see the Rams winning this, not only because they're playing in LA, even though they're not going to have really a home field advantage, let's be real. Most of those games, like we saw against the Niners took up most of that crowd. Here's my biggest concern. As good as that Bengals offense is, that offensive line worried me. We saw Burrow get, I think, sacked 9 or 10 times against the Titans. It was a playoff record, and they still lost. Rams' defensive line way better than the Titans' defensive line. Titans' D-line is amazing. Rams' D-line is elite. You got Aaron Donald still wrecking offensive lines. You got Von Miller fresh out of Denver. And you got just a young defensive core there. And remember, you got Jalen Ramsey as defending probably Jamar most of the game. So you got a lot of coverage going on in the Rams secondary. Burrow might have to scramble a ton or he's going to get sacked. And I feel like if he gets hit enough, he's going to be feeling those hits later in the game. We saw that with Cam Newton against the Broncos and Tom Brady versus the Falcons. So I want the Bengals to win, but I personally do believe the Rams will win if that defense can wreck the offensive line. Who do y'all think is going to win and why?
Jacob?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go the same way as you, Langley. I would love to see the Bengals win, but I simply do not see it happening. I hope it's a shootout just because that's a fun game to watch. Like we've been seeing these great games that come down to the last minute or so, and we get to watch somebody kick a field goal or throw a great pass to win the game. That'd be great to see. But I honestly think that the Rams will have a pretty solid handle on this game for most of the competition.
So we can take a second to forget everything that they just said, because Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, whatever you want to call him, the man of many names, is going to go out there and he's going to rise to the occasion. And Jamar going against Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey had some words saying that he wanted Jamar. I mean, Jamar takes that as a
challenge.
As a challenge, and he's going to step up to the challenge, and it's going to go back and forth. I don't think anyone's going to win that battle. Jalen Ramsey is, if not the best in the league, one of the best. So I think both of these guys on both sides of the ball, know what's going on. But, I just think these young guys are going to step up for Cincinnati and really get it done. I'm going to call the score 34-31. Bengals win. And
Evan McPherson
kicks the game-winning field goal and is the first kicker to ever win Super Bowl MVP. Just saying. That's what's going to happen. Then y'all are going to come watch this video again and be like, wow, this man's from the future. I don't know how he knew it all. That's just how it's going to go. I'm calling it now. The betting odds for Evan McPherson to win Super Bowl MVP are plus 6,000.
I'll tell you this right now. McPherson wins MVP. I will also take a bath in Skyline Chili. Straight up.
Actually, that will be live streamed on the All Love, All Hate Fantasy Football Podcast
channel.
We will all love to see Chris take a nice, I don't even know, like, do you do warm? Do you do cold?
Dude, I don't even want to think about that
Which
right
hurts
now.
less?
I don't know.
Cold chili or hot
I've
chili?
never bathed in chili, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Basically, the Rams should be the team that wins this. There's no doubt in my mind that they should win this game. But I don't know if it's because I'm that big Vanilla Shoe fan that I can't see it being otherwise.
Yeah.
I think Cincinnati's going to come out strong, and I think, like you say, their offensive line not playing that well. I think, everybody's been saying that. The offensive line is a weak point. I think these guys kind of, just finally realized, look, we made it this far. We got a great quarterback behind us, got a great running back behind us. Let's keep these guys safe. And I think they step up and do what they need to do. It's going to be hard, but I really do believe that Cincinnati can get it done here.
I mean, they upset the Titans and they upset the Chiefs, so I can easily see it. I mean, regardless, I hope it's an amazing game. This is easily, like I said, the most exciting playoffs I've ever seen in my life, and probably will be for a very long time, if not the rest of my life. And I hope it's an amazing game to close it off. Before we close off the episode, though, you said MVP of the game would be Evan McPherson to you. I got Cooper Kupp if the Rams win, just because it would be not. I mean, Matthew Stafford could probably win it and will most likely win, but I'd love to see a non-QB player getting it. What do you think?
I was going to say Cooper Kupp, but I'll just go Matthew Stafford because I won't be different from you.
That's fair. All right. Well, that's basically all we had. Jacob, close us off.
Yeah, so that's going to be the end of the Super Bowl episode. We'll hope to see you back sooner rather than later. No, that's it.
We'll probably do an episode for the NFL draft, at least what we expect, or after the draft, where we expect the offense players, how they'll be in fantasy lineups and into their rookie season.
But that's it from this season. I'm Jacob Reeder, as always.
I'm Chris Langley.
And I'm Payton Hedrick.
We'll see you whenever.
Peace. Thanks for watching. See y'all next time.
Who day?